Good afternoon. This is Riley Temple, and I am the Collections Growth Specialist for the African American Episcopal Historical Collection at the Bishop Payne Library at Virginia Theological Seminary. I have with me today the Reverend Charles Fischer of the Diocese of Pittsburgh.
Correct.
Who is a graduate of the Virginia Theological Seminary, and he is also a graduate of Morehouse College, and he knows Virginia Seminary very well, and he is well versed in the church. He has been a rector, but we'll get to all of that. How are you, Charles?
Good afternoon, Riley. Thank you for having me today.
This is the 31st of March, 2023 at 3:07 in the afternoon. I am home on California Street in Washington, D.C., and Charles is on the campus of Virginia Seminary at having been next door on the campus next door to see his son, who is a student at the Episcopal High School.
Yes, sir.
So, Charles, tell us about yourself.
Riley, I am a child of God, the son of Charles and Marilyn Fischer, born and raised in central New Jersey, the eldest of three children.
Where in central New Jersey?
A small town called Hightstown, New Jersey. Mm-hmm. It is south of New Brunswick, north of Fort Dix, east of Princeton, west of Freehold, smack dab in the middle of the state. The oldest of three children. I have a brother who's 4 years younger than I and a sister who's 7 years younger than me. I'm married to Rhonda. This is our 19th year of marriage together, and we are the parents of two sons, Charles IV, who is a freshman at the Episcopal High School, and Cameron, who is a first grader in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
And when you were, why was your family in New Jersey?
My paternal side of the family, the Fischers have been there, I guess, 2 generations. My father's mother, her mother was born in Maryland. I can't think of the town right now off the top of my head. And she migrated from Maryland to New Jersey with her daughter and son, which would be my grandmother and my great uncle, in the early 1900s to Asbury Park, New Jersey. Migrated from Maryland, somewhere in Maryland. I can't think.
Okay. All right.
My paternal grandfather, Charles Sr., was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and
when
he was born in 1900.
Okay,
and made his way to New Jersey sometime in his early adulthood, and eventually met my grandmother, and they started a family together in Asbury Park.
Asbury Park,
specifically. My maternal side of the family are my maternal grandfather. Is from Virginia, but was raised and spent a good part of his life, or grew up in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey. And my maternal grandmother, her family is from New York, New Jersey as well. All of them were born between 1900 and 1910, 1914, so quite some time ago.
Do you know where in Virginia he was from?
I do not know. We're actually doing some genealogy work. My grandparents were of generations where they didn't talk much about their past. They talked about where they were and where they were going.
Has that informed the way you speak to your own children about their history?
Informed in sense of, we talk about lineage, lineage and legacy. So Rhonda and I are quite clear about making sure the boys know who their grandparents are on both sides and know the stories of their grandparents, and make sure 3 of the 4 are still living, but they knew their maternal grandfather very well, to make sure they spend time with them and they get to know them, as well as extended family as well. And we tell the story, or try to tell the story, which was not always a part of my upbringing directly, but indirectly. It was so much so that that's why I'm affiliated with Virginia Seminary.
And when did y'all become Episcopalians?
On my father's side of the family, my grandfather, Charles Sr., was born and raised a Roman Catholic. The Fischers of that branch are still very Roman and Catholic, mostly now in Kentucky. I have a cousin that's of my generation who's a Roman Catholic priest. He went through some life things and became an Episcopalian, being at the time where he was, and which encouraged him to become an Episcopalian. My mother's side of family, we became Episcopalians when my grandfather changed the ordination from the Presbyterian Church to the Episcopal Church.
So you're not the first member of the clergy in your family?
No, not the first member of my clergy, and not the first Episcopal priest. My grandfather, the late Reverend Canon Isaiah G. Bell, was a 1956-57 graduate of Virginia Seminary. If history is correct, he probably was definitely the first Black Anglican study student, for lack of a better term. And he definitely was the first African-American ordained in the old chapel, as well, here for the Diocese of Virginia.
Charles, I did not know that. I did not know that. What do we at the seminary have on your grandfather?
There are a number of there used to be pictures around here, and some of his papers. I know we as a family have donated some things here to the institution when Julia Randall was here.
Yeah.
And there may be his picture, I think, may be in Justin Constant's book. Yeah, his ordination picture may be in
which book? No Turning Back?
No Turning Back, yeah.
Okay.
It's probably in there as well.
Okay. When did you, as a boy, well, let me ask it this way. When you were a boy, what were your stated aspirations? Charles, what are you going to be when you grow up?
Oh, yeah. I'm fetching for a power cord to make sure we don't disconnect one from another.
Don't make me have to drive out there now.
When I was a child, I knew I wanted to do something where it made an impact. I think I was, excuse me a moment.
That's all right.
I am the oldest grandchild on my mother's side and the eldest boy on my mother's side. But my grandfather, Canon Bell, he and my grandmother were very close to me. Spent a lot of time with them. And I admire my grandfather greatly. My grandfather was of a generation where he wore his black suit and collar from the time he woke up to the time he went to bed, and probably we didn't see him outside of that, even almost up to his dying day.
Wow.
Very rarely. But I thought, and probably knew I wanted to be a priest, but I heard some of the stories about his having to move around a lot, mostly for vocational advancement. My grandfather was fortunate in that way. And also I was raised in the 80s and coming into the 90s. So to be a capitalist was really where it was all at. But always in the back of my mind, I felt the calling of ministry. As a little boy, Sundays or even time spent with my grandparents, we would visit people, be it at their homes or hospitals and things of nature. So we were always, I was being nurtured. I was groomed for the ministry. On my father's side of the family, the women were all Baptists.
Mm-hmm.
and my father and his father were the Episcopalians. But my grandmother, Mildred Fischer, was the clerk of her church, Second Baptist Church in Asbury Park, New Jersey, on Atkins Avenue, which was really directly across the street from the family house. So I had a strong connection to that congregation as well, and the pastor there, who also happened to be a very dear and close friend of my grandfather's.
Is that how you know how to clap and finger pop in worship?
That is why I know the fullness of who I am as a Black man in America who understands himself to be a Christian.
We'll get to all that very shortly.
Okay.
So how would you describe, as a child, how would you describe your connection to your spiritual life?
So I lived a full life. My parents were, they are the type of Episcopalians where you go to the church within your geographic region, your parish. So we were raised in the church in our town, which actually was a church plant, which was planted on the Petty School in Hightstown, New Jersey, 50 something years ago. And so I remember when the church had not yet had a building, and we would worship in the chapel at the Petty School, and our Sunday school classes were in the Sunday school or in the classrooms on the Petty School, and our church playground was the yard of the Petty School until the church was a church building, which still stands and has been expanded greatly, was built just the next town over in Cranbury, Cranbury, on Main Street. And they built a place there. So we went, and that church was no more than 1.5 miles, maybe 2 miles from our house.
Yeah.
It was predominantly white.
Yeah.
With few African Americans. We experienced people of other nationalities and ethnicities, especially during the Civil War in Liberia. A number of Liberian families came to the congregation. There were a couple of families from Southeast Asia that were adopted by members of our congregation, as the whole families were brought over. So that was the diversity in thought in that local Episcopal congregation. But then also I was highly influenced by the Baptist Church, and specifically the Black Baptist Church at Second Baptist in Asbury Park. The Reverend Dr. Verner Matthews was the pastor.
Verner Matthews.
Verner, V-E-R.
Verner. I was about to say, so it's a man. Okay, all right.
So it was. I would say that my home congregation, St. David's in Cranbury, Second Baptist in Asbury Park, and then my father's, the congregation where my parents actually met and where my grandfather was also the rector, would be St. Augustine's Episcopal Church in Asbury Park, which was just a couple blocks behind Second Baptist. As a child visiting my grandmother, we would go to the early service at Second Baptist at times, and then after that service, we would walk down the street a couple blocks over to St. Augustine's. And so we had a dualistic encounter with Christianity. I was always enthralled with the music of Second Baptist. I was enthralled by the preaching, the cadence, not just the preacher, but even those who prayed. But I was also equally intrigued with the pageantry, the sacred pageantry of St. Augustine's Episcopal Church, which we did not have at St. David's. St. David's, where we were most Sundays, the home church that I grew up in, was very low to broad. And St. Augustine's Asbury Park, thoroughfares and
chasubles and carrying on.
Everything. It was beautiful. I mean, it was the best of expressions of what it meant to be Black, Christian, and Episcopalian. And I don't know if everybody could have described it that way, but now looking back on it, I think that's what not Second Baptist, but St. Augustine's provided for me. I remember as a little boy, when I would muse about if I were to be a priest one day.
Yes.
I would say the Mass or pray the Eucharistic prayers this way in a certain cadence. I leaned to my brother and said, "You know what? This book really can do something." I was a little kid, man. I had to be a teenager.
Yeah.
Not even a teenager, probably a preteen.
Yeah.
no older than my oldest boy is now, and lean over to my brother and say, you know what? Church could be a whole lot more fun if we had the music from Mama's church, and if the preacher would talk this way or the people would pray this way.
Yeah.
I think that the church could be more vibrant. Maybe our friends would even come to it. I was thinking that way as a little boy. And so that was always important. I mean, I was also influenced because my grandfather was ecumenical in nature and in friendship and relationships. I got to hear all the great preachers of or get to meet a lot of the great preachers, not knowing that's who they were.
Who?
Samuel DeWitt Proctor.
Yes.
Then would have been of the Abyssinian Baptist Church. Of course, Dr. King. And the books that were on the bookshelves at my parents' house. I knew a lot about the Powells of Abyssinian Baptist Church. Adam Powell Sr. as well as Jr. These things were always around the house, and there was an unspoken appreciation for who we were, people of African descent.
Yeah.
And what I try to be with my boys is to articulate that not just by the visuals around the house, but also by our spoken word.
Yeah. And tell me about your education, your school. Public school?
I was public school educated all the way through.
Integrated school, racially?
Sure, yeah. It wasn't segregated, but depending on, it was integrated. It was integrated.
I don't think well in school.
Say it again.
Did you do well in school?
Well enough. I would never fancy myself. I would never fancy myself as being an academic superstar, but I did well, and I did other things that were necessary in order to round out my education.
Well, did you ever take an interest in the arts? Did you ever play music? Or
as a little boy, I played the trumpet. As a young person, I was in plays in school. When I got to high school, positions of leadership was what intrigued me. So 3 of my 4 years in high school, I was class president. I was the president of our Black history group, or some of that, which we later renamed the W.B. Du Bois Cultural Awareness Group, because I was influenced by a summer program where I learned about Dr. Du Bois in a way that has shaped my life in so many different ways, especially when I began to see the lines of a parallel path in terms of our lives, and probably even some intersections just by how we were raised, and then our interests. I was that's what I played sports. I was a soccer player and ran track, played baseball as a kid. Not too big of a fan of playing basketball, but I appreciate it now, especially with my boys' interest. So I was a well-rounded kid, and I was also very active in our local church, and learning how to speak before people, public speaking, I guess we would call it, and presentation, how to present yourself in certain environments came from my grandfather, but I think also from our local congregation, but also the other 2 congregations I spoke of, which were important for my formation.
You were a leader.
Yes, some would describe it as that, yes.
And you enjoyed it?
I do enjoy it.
Now, when it came time to apply to colleges, what were you thinking?
What was I thinking?
Yeah, what were your interests? What were your choices?
Sure.
Who was on the list? What was on the list?
The schools I applied to are several Ivy Leagues, the big state college in New Jersey, Rutgers, North Carolina Central in Durham, North Carolina, and Morehouse College. I was naive. I mean, I grew up right down the street from Princeton University, spent a lot of time on Princeton University's campus. I did not see Princeton as being attractive because I just didn't understand it. I mean, Princeton was the name of the town, and I knew the university was there, and Thomas Sweet's ice cream was down the street, but I didn't really have appreciation for that. But I had a college tour historically Black college tour that was hosted by the women of Central New Jersey. I think it was called the Central New Jersey Network of Black Women. Would do a annual Black historical Black college and university bus tour.
Yeah. And what year was this?
This would have been the spring of 1990. Mm-hmm. I think that's correct. Spring of 1990. And that year we made our way to Atlanta, Georgia, to Morehouse College. Mm-hmm. I had heard of Morehouse College, but I did not have an appreciation for Morehouse College. That's not true. Yeah, I had heard of Morehouse College, but didn't have appreciation for Morehouse College. I think my only real connection at that particular point in my life was Dr. King. But I remember stepping off the bus, and the bus was where now there's a parking deck, used to be a parking lot that sat between Morehouse and Spelman. And I saw Black men who looked like me walking around in jackets and ties and had demeanor about themselves. And I said, I'm going to school here. And it didn't hurt that Spelman was just behind the gate on the other side and CAU.
You know how many times I hear Negro men say that kind of stuff? I mean, really. I mean, I hear some of y'all say we went to Morehouse. I sit there talking about it. I took more courses at Spelman than I did at Morehouse.
I can't. That's not my story, but I did spend a lot of time over there. It's not on my transcript. The time.
Well, we're not going to talk about that today. We're talking about things of the spirit.
I would say that. So that was a profound impact. I bought a sweatshirt there.
At Spelman?
Morehouse. A Morehouse sweatshirt. And I took it back and I wore that sweatshirt literally every day until I graduated from high school. I had to have a goal.
I hope you took that thing off and washed it every now and then.
It now is framed on a wall in my home office.
Get out of town.
I had to have a goal.
Yeah.
And Morehouse was it. I had a guidance counselor.
Now, when you say you had to have a goal,
mm-hmm.
What was that something new for you at the time as a boy, or did you?
I needed a North Star. I mean, my parents were college educated. My grandfather had several degrees. My grandfather sat on the board of his alma mater, mm-hmm. His undergraduate, and mm-hmm. where he got his then it would be a BD.
Where?
Bloomfield College.
Yeah. Okay.
Bloomfield, New Jersey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So college wasn't a question. I mean, I was going to go to college, but I had to have a North Star in terms of where I was going to go to college.
Yeah.
And that experience at Morehouse in that spring of 1990, I think it was just so proud. I needed a goal. So I came back to my high school guidance counselor. I said, I want to be a Morehouse man. She was a Bennett Bell from Bennett College in Greensboro. And she said, well, I know Morehouse well. Morehouse and Bennett are brother-sister schools. And I had a dean. Her name was Shirley Satterfield. She's in Princeton, New Jersey now, proud member of Witherspoon Presbyterian Church. And then I had my academic dean was a gentleman by the name of Russ Ballou, who was also a member of my church.
Ballou, you said?
Ballou, Beaulieu. I think that's his name. Who just passed away this past December 2022. And between the two of them, we charted out what I needed to do in order to get accepted to Morehouse.
Okay.
And not just to get accepted, they would call the admissions office on a regular basis. If my memory is correct, it was probably monthly, if not weekly. In my mind, I like to say it was daily, but they would call the admissions office and say, we have a young man by the name of Charles Fischer who wants to be a Morehouse man. These are his grades, these are his activities. What else does he need to do?
So you went down there to become a Morehouse man who is well-read, well-spoken, well-traveled, well-balanced, and well-dressed.
Yes, sir. Yeah, what else? That's Robert
Aren't
Michael
you
Franklin.
Impressed that I knew that?
Very well. Those are Robert Michael Franklin's 5 wells that came well after my time, but they were still appropriate back then, though they weren't articulated as they were in the presidency of Robert Franklin.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I just want to make sure that you know that I'm on top of things.
Your research.
Now, listen. You went to Morehouse.
Yeah.
What happened to you there? In other words, many of us, no, hold, stop. That's not what I'm asking. when we go away to college,
Yeah.
it is a time of discovery. It's a time of expansion intellectually in almost every other way. And I guess that's what I'm asking you.
Oh, yeah. Well, on Thursdays, we had all school assembly called Crown Forum. At my time, you had assigned seats. And there was no telling who may be the speaker in Crown Forum on any particular Thursday. So I heard the best orators and thinkers of the diaspora, and specifically of Black America, as a student there. I remember a young Michael Eric Dyson. I remember hearing Gardner C. Taylor. I remember Jesse Jackson, I'm sure, was there several times. I mean, you name them, they were there. And so that was profound because I didn't hear speakers like that on a regular basis.
Few people did.
I guess not. Yeah. But I mean, it wasn't like we had guest speakers at my church or anything of that nature.
No, but what I'm saying to you is that at a school like Morehouse,
oh yes, there's only one.
It would be the place where there would be a critical mass.
Yes, yeah, I agree. Yeah,
right.
Male and female alike. Yeah,
right. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Male and female alike.
Right.
And you would see them walking across the campus or between the campuses, and like even if you didn't know, you knew there was something special about them.
Mm-hmm.
There was something special about them, the way they presented themselves, the way they carried themselves, the way that people were either drawn to them or so impressed that they stayed away from them. So that was important. I was also exposed to different Christian communities and denominations in a way I had not been prior. And so I didn't wander away, but I wandered towards a strong relationship with Jesus Christ through other denominational expressions and experiences.
Such as?
I remember going to a missionary Baptist church, October 31st, 1993. It snowed that day.
Wow.
And I remember.
Why do you remember?
I remember the invitation to Christ, an invitation to the church. And I responded. I won't say the name of the preacher now because that person has a checkered past. But I remember that Sunday morning, and check the calendar, make sure that's correct. But that was profound for me. And then I had friends who were boy preachers, and so I would go with them to wherever they were preaching and see this. I was fascinated.
You mean who were students?
You never saw no boy preacher. Excuse me?
Who were students at Morehouse?
Who were students at Morehouse, yeah.
Okay.
There's no such thing as a boy preacher in the Episcopal Church. And so I would see this and be exposed to that, and I would go where they would go and be exposed to the great pulpiteers and congregations in Atlanta and then later on in life in New York City, where I went after I graduated as well. So that was.
Go ahead.
So that was. So I think I was always drawn to our leaders. What did how did Ossie Davis describe Malcolm X? Our great and shining prince.
Many his eulogy,
yeah. Many of these great gentlemen and women, but more men, because I saw a reflection of myself in them. I was like, can I be like them? But I knew that my background was different because I was an Episcopalian and I had very few models of what that would look like. I had my grandfather, and I had a couple other people, but nobody stood out because they didn't have a name per se. And so, a part of my wrestling with call was, how could I be authentic to Charles with all these other influences and find an authentic place within the church of my upraising? Talk
about that more, please. You said the date in 1990. Three.
Oh, 1990, yeah. I know the date when I first went to Morehouse, yeah.
Yeah, and October 31st of 1993.
Yeah.
When you answered a call.
I accepted the invitation when the doors of the church were opened. I had never heard that before. I mean, I probably heard it all many times at Second Baptist, but
Oh,
didn't mean
you
anything.
actually became a member of the church.
Well, that's a longer conversation. No, I
Oh, no,
didn't.
no, became you accepted Jesus Christ as your savior. Is that
But I had already been confirmed. I mean, it was the first time I heard this clarion call. Like there was an invitation. I was like, oh, you get invited to this thing. Like you get to make a decision. That was a first for me. I'm an 18-year-old kid who had just left a small town in New Jersey and here in this big city at large this large mega ministry of a church. And this man says, is there one? Will you join this church? I never heard such a thing. Or I never paid attention to such a thing. And I responded.
How
And
did you feel?
Oh man, I get goosebumps right now telling the story. Because I said that's all it takes is an invitation. That's all it takes. That's all it took. That's all it took.
And when I said you became a member of the church, you demurred. What is that about?
I didn't necessarily join that ministry after that.
I see.
Yeah, but it was a way for me to be. It was the spark for me to be more conscious about my Christian identity.
Ah, and how did you nurture that? I'm sure you did nurture it publicly by attending church on a regular basis, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How did you nurture that privately?
Prayer as a teenager, I wrestled with the idea of who God was. I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, so there was the heavy influence of the Nation of Islam, the 5% Nation of Islam as well, in the music and within the arts. I remember friends referring to one another as gods and women as earths. And once asking, how can we call each other God? And they would talk about, well, I see the God in you as you see the God in me. They were talking about the Imago Dei, but nobody used that language.
Yeah.
In that particular way. I remember hearing the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, born and raised, confirmed in the Episcopal Church.
Yes, indeed.
Talk about how that we were the image of God and things of that nature. And I didn't
Boston, St. Cyprian's.
Roxbury, yep. I didn't hear that stuff in the Episcopal Church, but those were the things, those were the kind of spiritual wrestlings I was having was, how do I fit into this narrative? This is also the 80s and 90s growing up where you didn't really talk about how Jesus was a black man. Or you were radical if you went to the text where they talk about his hair was like wool and his skin was like bronze and things of that nature. So that was what the radicals did, but that was also a way for you to stand out. And I wore, going back to high school, I wore a t-shirt underneath my soccer jersey of Malcolm and Martin after I became aware of who I was as a black man. And I wore cowrie shells and these types of things were, but I didn't know how to articulate it. Nobody was molding me in such a way to say, this is what you do with this new energy that you have found. It wasn't until going to Atlanta as an 18-year-old boy where I was seeing these other expressions of Christianity and these other expressions of spirituality and people coming from different parts of the world in the country that were articulating things that I was able to begin to put together a spiritual life for myself. So yes, I guess a public expression would be attending worship services, but then also it was in learning how to pray and learning that my prayers were heard, or believing that my prayers were heard. I had a roommate in school and had a couple friends from different parts of the country, and all of us, or this particular subset, we all came from households where Sunday morning worship was important. So we could hang out on Saturday night all night long. But we made a point to go to church on Sunday mornings because we would have conversations with our parents in the evening, and all of us wouldn't be able to tell our parents that we heard something at church. And so we kept each other accountable that way. It's a strange and beautiful peer pressure that we found ourselves in somebody's pew on Sunday after Sunday, after an early Sunday morning or a late Saturday night, because we wanted to be accountable to our parents. But I think we were all I know we were all nurtured in a particular way because of that.
What was your major?
Finance.
And what did you, I'm sure it was your interest, did you think when you chose the major that you were going on to seminary?
Oh, no, no. I think when I first got, as many young people do when they go to college, they don't know what they're going to study. I thought I was going to be a history major, because I could be a history teacher like Mr. Blue in a high school. I thought I'd be a marketing major because I didn't really understand. I knew of marketing executives, and I thought I wanted to do marketing. I had a friend of mine, his father was a university president, and sat us down one day and he said, "You boys are chasing around all types of stuff. You need to study finance and go get you a finance degree." And so I followed that gentleman and got a finance degree, not knowing where it would take me per se.
And when you graduated from Morehouse, you went to New York, didn't you?
Yeah, I sure did. I went to Heritage. I was Heritage Chase guy. Worked for Chase Security specifically, and stayed there for some years as it went through the merger with JP Morgan.
How long?
4 years.
4 years. Did you do well?
Yeah, I got promoted from analyst to associate without going to business school, which was a big deal at that time. You know, most people did their 2 or 3 years as an associate. I mean, analyst, went to business school, got their MBA, came back and was promoted to or rehired as an associate. I was able to make that transition. I did structured finance. I was not in love with it as some of my peers were. But this was the late 90s, where money was falling from trees and the dot-com era, and people were bouncing around from firm to firm. I stayed with Chase my time there, starting off at 270 Park Avenue, where I would get to see your friend and one of my great heroes, Mr. Vernon Jordan, across the street at the Zard Fairs, and watch him walking down the street. And a buddy of mine, we would go out for lunch around the same time as Mr. Jordan, and we would watch from across Park Avenue. Some days we would cross the street and just walk behind him. So we could walk like Vernon Jordan, walk with the shoulders. Go back to
that. He would like that.
He would like that story. I mean, he was even in the moments where I was as close to him as across the table or across a room at the airport, I was always intimidated by him, and not intimidated in a bad way, but just intimidated by the aura of him. But he was, it goes back to that presence, how you carry yourself, how people look to you and upon you. And when you would hear him tell stories about growing up at University Homes, I think was in Atlanta, Georgia, and watching Benjamin Elijah Mays walk across the campus and all the other academics, he would talk about the same thing. And so I recognize that there's a story. There's a story that many, I can't speak for everybody, let's speak for myself. There's a story that many Black men can speak about they have become or aspired to become because they saw something that was attractive to them, and they said, I want to be that, and I need to do whatever it takes to get to look like that. And it's not about material things. I think it's about the aura of being able to say, if I present myself in a certain way, carry myself in a certain way, maybe people will listen to what I have to say, and then you find out people will follow you.
Have you told your sons that story?
About Mr. Jordan?
Yeah.
Maybe not in the same way. I mean, Mr. Jordan's funeral program sits in a very prominent spot in my home office. His books are all over the place. I mean, there are several people, when people get to know me well, there are several people who stand out in my life, who I knew not always very well, but knew intimately enough that I could tell about their stories. It'd be Vernon Jordan, it'd be Jackie Robinson, it'd be Calvin O. Butts III, Benjamin Elijah Mays, W.B. Du Bois. Some of them I know more about than others, and there are some other people who are still amongst us who I could speak of that all carry these same characteristics. And yeah.
Now, did you live in the city?
Which city? New York?
New York, yeah.
I lived in Brooklyn, baby.
That's the city.
It very much is. But I mean, it's the Brooklyn of the 90s, not the Brooklyn of now. Very different.
I do understand the gilded edges of the Brooklyn of today. You lived in Brooklyn when it was reasonably affordable.
I remember people moving from Staten Island to downtown Brooklyn because they couldn't afford to live in Manhattan.
Right.
You shake your head and like, why would you just stay where you are?
Yeah, right.
Ironically enough, I ended up living on a street. One of the apartments I had in Brooklyn, thought about we did genealogy, was actually one of the streets that my grandfather, Charles Sr., had lived on at one time in his life.
Wow. How did you find that out?
I think my dad had some paperwork or something of that nature, and we looked at the address, and it was like, don't you live here, or didn't you live here? And that was my grandfather.
Where'd you go to church when you were there?
Emmanuel Baptist Church. Reverend Anthony Trufant was the pastor there. He was a Morehouse man as well. It was at that time, it was a small congregation that a lot of individuals, young Black professionals, were moving back into Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy area, and we found our way to that church, which now has become a robust and booming ministry. But I had another encounter there as well, in terms of reclaiming and re-identifying my Christian identity at the Emmanuel Baptist Church.
You want to talk about that, please?
Oh, yeah. I studied finance. I worked in financial services. It just didn't do it for me. And when I would have rough times, I would listen to gospel CDs. As a matter of fact, I'd even steal away to go get catalogs for seminaries and divinity schools. Don't know why. And even went on.
Say today that you don't know why. Did you said that then? Do you now know why?
Do I know why now? Today, do I know why?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah.
My grandfather, passed away in January of 1998. And knew I couldn't waste life. And he was 88, 89 years old. I know I couldn't waste my life. And again, I heard that call with everyone who joined this church. And as much as I love the Emmanuel Baptist Church and the ministry of Pastor Trufant, I went through new members courses, and at the end of the class, I did very well. They asked the question, when were you baptized? And went around the room, and some people said, I'd never been baptized. Okay, you're going to be baptized on this day. Some of you get to bring in the fellowship. Came to me and said, when were you baptized? I said, I don't know. I was a kid. I was 6 months old. How would I know? And they looked at me and were like, how would you not know your baptism date? And I was like, well, why would I know? I had not put the denominational connections about believers' baptism and infant baptism and the like. And they said, well, you have to be baptized again. I said, well, I was a star. Well, not star, but I mean, I did, I participated in this new members course, and I'm not going to get baptized again. I said, we believe in one baptism. I think that's what the creed says. And my grandfather baptized me, and that would say that my grandfather's baptism of me was invalid. Mm-hmm. And I won't have that. I didn't stray away from church, but I strayed away from really jumping full into a life of a congregation for a couple of years after that, because I was trying to wrestle with this idea of which baptism was valid or not. Going back to these theological questions I had back when I was a teenage boy about the Imago Dei, but nobody used that language. They saw the God in one another, and saying that we are created in the image of God, and Jesus was a Black man, and all that, and that sort of talk that it gave me hope and gave me comfort. Here I go again. Here I have a spiritual high, and it's knocked down out of a misunderstanding of probably the leader in the classroom that day, and also myself, because we did not have the language to speak one to another to say that regardless of knowing the date, my infant baptism was as valid as a believer's baptism, because there were other things that had taken place in my life that which would have demonstrated that I was a person of faith, and I had already made an adult confession of faith by my confirmation as a.
And you had been held by your grandfather.
Both times. My grandfather stood as my sponsor at confirmation. And I have a picture of him standing behind me as well. I mean, but he had just passed away. Mm-hmm. And so it's this rustling of, are you saying my grandfather wasn't valid? And I knew that not to be true.
What happened as a result of that?
I went to church every Sunday.
Vision.
Say it again.
What happened as a result of that? Well, I would call it a revelation. Would you call that a revelation of some kind?
Future discovery. I mean, future seeking out.
Mm-hmm.
If trying to figure out more and more.
Mm-hmm.
This is also trying to figure out, did I want to stay in New York any longer? Did I want to leave? I had opportunities to go back and enter into a new career path, a new professional career path.
Where?
To go back to Atlanta to work at my alma mater, Morehouse College.
As what?
Associate Director of Alumni Relations and Annual Giving Programs. So I entered into my first phase of my development profession. Professional
building upon your BMOC status when you were an undergraduate.
I was a pretty important guy at Morehouse. I was a student trustee at Morehouse. I won the BR Brazil.
Now, why didn't you say that when we were talking about it earlier?
Who best exemplifies the ideas of a Morehouse man. Riley, why didn't I? Because I'm not as proud of a man as I am. I'm not that braggadocious, and I need to do a little bit better at it. Not to be arrogant, but to share more of my story with folks.
Charles, let me just say this to you, and I mean this with my heart and soul. We are speaking with the knowledge that what we're saying to one another today will be preserved in perpetuity. This is your opportunity to speak to the ages. You need to talk about your wisdom, your strength, and your experience as openly and as unvarnished a way as you can. Comfortably talk about it. I am not going to think less of you, nor will anybody else.
You're jealous.
Shoot. Don't mess with me. I told you. At the beginning, I told you to stop messing with me. You may break your arm patting yourself on the back in this conversation. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Sure, yeah.
All right, now go back and talk about your Morehouse bigness.
Yeah, so I was a student leader in high school, right?
Yes.
And I just thought that was, you get to Morehouse and you thought everybody was a student leader. You're not fancy because you're a student body president or student government president or president of this or captain of that. Yeah. Everybody there was.
Yeah. You
had to find a way to set yourself apart.
Yeah, that's right.
You had to find a way that not only in the classroom, if you could, as best as possible, but you also had to set your part within the community of people there. And so I had have a knack of building relationships with people that many people would not think that I would be friends with. If I were to say something in a silo conversation, I would say, well, he probably doesn't hang out with people like this or X, Y, and Z. And then you find out who was at Fisher's house or who did Fisher go talk to. Well, he had boo, 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 boo around the table. Really? So I had this knack of building relationships and building connectionships with people. And because of going back to my grandparents, I had a fondness of hanging out with old folks, older folks, more mature people. So I would spend time with the old Morehouse guys at reunions and homecomings and when they come on campus and just sit there and soak it all in. Not like following Mr. Jordan walking down Park Avenue, but Otis Moss Jr. would come to campus, and
Yes.
And I did a pre-alumni association, and so he would come because our advisor and he were close, and he would come by the office, and we would hear these stories, and I would hang out with or spend time around Hugh Gloucester, and later on in life I got to know Samuel Du Bois Cook very, very well, I knew him as a student, but I got to know him very much more when I came back. Much better when I came back as a professional, and then got to participate in his funeral as well. But there are, so those are the things. So I would watch and I would listen. I would pick up the stories about people would talk about. I was at Morehouse as a student at an age where there were still people alive who knew John Hope. And there were still people, and there are still people alive who, of course, there are people alive who were students under Dr. Mays. Like I said, some people who would be under John Hope as well. I got to know Samuel Napert very well. That was as well because he lived just at the bottom on Beckwith Street, lived right below the president's house, and he would say that his house was built by President John Hope. John Hope wanted to make sure that he came back to teach in the Atlanta University and at Morehouse College, and that he could watch from the president's house as his house is being built on Beckwith Street. Asa Yancey, who was a great doctor at the Grady Hospital in Atlanta. I remember just hanging around these giants of men and hearing the stories and recognizing that you can't tell your own story without making the connections of other parts of your life and other experiences.
That's right.
So I was very involved in the pre-alumni association at Morehouse College. Was a president there and got involved in student government. I remember I ran for student body vice president and lost somehow or another by the grace of God. I ended up being student body president at Morehouse College for like the last month or two of school, and I had the president's office that overlooked the yard and all types of craziness. But I mean, I had wonderful and great experiences learning about others, also discovering more about myself and what were the things that were important to me. And again, I would hear that cadence that I would say to my brother, boy, if the Episcopal Church had a cadence like this, well, we're going to do something. I don't know how we came over here, came back to 830 Westview Drive, but the experiences of both studying and working at Morehouse and being around men who made profound impacts in their households, their communities, this nation, and the world, and continue to do such, has been part. Oh, we're talking about my relationships and friendships.
Well,
so I would be able to bring people together, and I'd spend time with diverse groups of people and without judgment. So I had
But we were also, what we were talking about is your time in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And how you got back
to Atlanta. Yeah.
And that's when you said you had an opportunity to go back to Morehouse. And I said, so to build upon your BMOC status when you were a student and you didn't gratuitously, you finally coughed up.
Yeah,
a moment of truth.
Walter Massey was the president who signed my degree, and he came to New York on a Father's Day. He was doing a development trip and asked me if I would come back to work at the college because they're looking to expand upon the development office and need some younger alums because they're about to kick off a capital campaign. I had no appreciation or understanding what he was talking about, but I worked for a very wealthy man who came from a very wealthy family of generations, who at the bank, who was always going on these luncheons, but they were never client lunches. I was like, who's taking you out to eat all the time? And he said, oh, these are people from the schools I attended and my wife attended and my parents attended and so on and so forth. I said, but what's it about? He said, oh, they want my money. I said, so people get paid to take people out for lunch? He said, yeah. I said, somebody can make a career out of that? He said, yeah, you can make a very good career out of it. I was naive. I think one of the downfalls of the Black community, we don't talk about philanthropy well.
Not enough.
Well, we don't speak about it well. I mean, we don't understand the fullness and depth and breadth of it. And then that there is a world out there. There's also a professional track. Mm-hmm. So when Dr. Massey came and asked me if I would come back and work at the college in the alumni office and help out my mentor and advisor that was there, and I said, well, I get paid to take people out to lunch. That's the only thing I really knew. He said, yeah, I guess there would be some of that as well. So I took the opportunity to go back to go back to Atlanta.
What year was this, Charles?
2001. So that first conversation took place in June. I said I wanted to wait to see if I would be promoted to associate before I made a decision. So that probably took place sometime that summer. I didn't get the promotion. So I satisfied a goal, right? The goal was I can go analyst to associate without going to business school. I did it. I can say it's done. I've done that. And I on a vacation, I heard a voice say, "Follow me" in the storm. And I came back from that vacation. I called Dr. Massey and said, I'll come back. And I'll come back to Atlanta and work at the college. Can
you talk about that voice?
Sure, yeah. It's the voice that saved my life. I was on a cruise ship, sailing in the Caribbean, and in a storm at night, I heard a voice say, "Follow me." And I just couldn't. I was like, "This is."
What were you doing on a cruise ship in a storm?
I was vacationing on the cruise ship.
And were you alone?
No, it was a family trip.
Oh,
no, it was a family trip. My now wife, then girlfriend, was part of that trip as well. And it was eerie, but it was clear. And so I came back and accepted the job and went back to the office at the bank. Now it was JP Morgan Chase. And I was to end on a Friday. I came in on a Monday to finish some stuff up, and we said, well, tomorrow we'll have some sort of celebration for you. I didn't wake up on time that Tuesday morning, and planes were flying into World Trade Towers. If I had woken up and gone to the initial appointment, or even if it was a regular work day, I would have been underneath the World Trade Towers when the planes hit, just by the way it was. I actually watched the second plane go into the tower. And I probably would have been on the street in my normal routine, because I'll go and get something to eat, like a late breakfast, when the building started coming down. I heard a voice in the storm in August, resigned from a job, did not go to the place that I was supposed to be on a Tuesday morning, that we now know is 9/11.
When you heard, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And so I don't think I knew many people, if anybody, who died. I probably knew somebody, but nobody intimately. who perished in the fall. But I remember that was just an eerie and strange day. I remember driving to Atlanta that week, where there was very few people on the highway, and the only thing in the sky were jet planes zip zapping across as I drove down I-95 to 85 to get to Atlanta. Not my divine imagination, but I will firmly say that voice was instructing me to be open to the opportunities that came to me, because there was something else that God had in store for me.
Did you tell anybody about that voice that you heard?
Yeah, I told Rhonda about it. Yeah. I don't remember if I told her right away. I probably told her not soon thereafter.
Did you have a sense when you heard it how profound it would be for you?
No. It's only when I retell the story and I think back. I think back in my life from that moment to the moment I tell the story. Like, if I had not followed God, where would I be?
Where did you meet Rhonda?
New York City.
How?
She was she was an intern working for one of the competitor banks, and we met at a cocktail party.
Was this a networking cocktail party kind of thing?
Yeah. Blacks on Wall Street, whatever type of thing.
I see. Oh, yes, of course. And when you met her, did your socks roll up and down and your bow tie start spinning?
I did have a bow tie on.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, I knew that she was somebody special. That over time, over the course of that summer, if this was to be real, that we would have a lifetime together. We could have a lifetime together.
And how often did you have to persist when she would turn to you and say, "Boy, stop wasting my time"?
That's for another Zoom call, Riley. But Rhonda and I dated for some time. Like I said, this year will be 19 years of marriage.
Of marriage.
And over in 25 plus years of being together, of knowing each other and being together.
You mean to tell me you didn't pick up? You didn't. From, let's see.
You just did the math. Keep going. Let's move forward.
Oh my God! You were wasting her time. 6 years. All right, fine. I'm not. It's none of my business. We need to talk about the work of the Spirit.
Yes, sir.
All right. When I see you, I'm going to go upside your head. No, but it's all right. Now, Charles, you went back to Atlanta. How long were you there?
When I went back this last time, that time, 2001 until 2006. That's 5 years. The reason I left Atlanta after that assignment was because I enrolled in Virginia Seminary.
What happened between Follow Me and your decision to apply to seminary?
Oh, a host of things. I mean, I think one of the things of moving to Atlanta, I was able to afford the opportunity to purchase a home, which was important to me. I probably should have purchased a home in Brooklyn. I would have been wealthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I was able to purchase home at that time, and the hindsight is now more than 2020. I said, let me get back to the basics that got me, that had me grounded as a young person. So I returned back to the Episcopal Church after spending the past several years at Emmanuel Baptist in Brooklyn and some other churches.
Where?
St. Paul's Episcopal Church, Atlanta, Georgia. When the rector there at the time was the now Bishop of Atlanta, Robert Wright.
Okay. Did he did his style resonate and remind you of that cadence with which you had spoken to your brother?
No, but he was young. it was a young man with a young family, which I had not seen much in terms of African Americans. I think the first sermon so I heard him quote a hip hop artist or something like that, and I said, oh, "This is different." And I knew that there was something special within that community, and also he presented a gift that was attractive, a gift in terms of his ministry that was attractive to me, and so he and I forged a relationship and helped me discern an appropriate response to this tingling of I want to do more in the church.
Okay. And when were you you and Rhonda and Item by that time?
Yeah. So we split our time between a well-respected Baptist church and St. Paul's, and she eventually was confirmed in the Episcopal Church and came to St. Paul's.
Okay. And what year were you married?
04.
04. And you came to Virginia Seminary what year?
06.
06. Why Virginia Seminary?
The bishop would not allow me to stay and go to Candler at Emory. The bishop had that. Oh, I was told that I needed to be formed in the Episcopal Church, which I think speaks to some of the misunderstandings of white folks in terms of Black people's experience within the Episcopal Church. We are formed in a very different way, but we're still as Episcopalian, if not more than some other folks. I mean, I think Black folks.
Now tell me, explain for your descendants in the church, what you just said.
Oh, so I think I would interpret the individual saying I need to be formed in the Episcopal Church by saying that I had not spent enough time in white spaces as they understood, or if they knew at that particular time, to say that I understood what it meant to be an Episcopalian. I've been worshiping a historically Black congregation, which was founded in 1880, 1881. It started off as a Sunday school, that being St. Paul's Episcopal Church at that time. But that individual, that bishop in that commission on ministry, they didn't know my lineage or my experiences at St. David's Cranberry, which I talked about, or St. Augustine's Asbury Park, as well as other churches and things church-wide that I participated in. I was not one of these canoe trip and pizza party people who found the Episcopal Church because it had this inclusive or loving theology that they were attracted to. No, I was steeped in it. I mean, the only font I knew was a small font where people were sprinkled with water. So I knew the Episcopal Church, but this bishop thought that other people could stay, but I had to go someplace else. He gave me some options. One of them was general, and I said, I made real money living in New York. I'm not going to New York poor. That does not sound like fun at all to me. And VTS was one of the places that was offered. You know, this was the time where you listened. It wasn't even that long ago, but this is still the time where the bishop really had true authority, and you listened to what your bishop said. So you didn't go to seminary until the bishop said you can go to seminary, and you went to where the bishop suggested. This is 2004, 5, 6. I went in 6, but going to VTS, it just made sense. Martha Horn was dean. Martha Horn was the dean at the time, who knew my grandfather. I had wonderful experiences when I would come to visit. My brother was living here at the time when I was beginning to visit. I had an aunt and an uncle who weren't too far from here. My grandfather was the vicar of Mead Memorial Church when he was a student here, so I would stop by Mead Memorial. Dr. Tony Lewis was a parishioner of my grandfather's and a childhood peer of my mother. So there was these other connections, things of that nature. So and Rob Wright had gone to VTS, and some other people who I respected and knew had gone to VTS. So that those and many other reasons why I didn't go to other places made sense to come here 3737 Seminary Road. Yeah.
You were a full-time student.
Oh yeah, Rhonda. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Rhonda was working.
Rhonda's worked the first year. Yeah.
Yeah. And when did you start your family?
At Virginia Theological Seminary, Alexandria, Virginia. Charles IV was born.
I didn't want to know all that.
First Friday.
I wanted to know when was she born.
Charles IV was born the first Friday of my middle year, here at Inova Hospital. So for him going to school next door was as he likes to say, it was a coming home of sorts for him. So Charles was born here while we were.
Does he have fond memories of his earliest childhood?
We talked earlier about retelling the story. So he doesn't remember being 1 or 2, but at the age of 2, that would have been 2009. I took a job here at the seminary as director of alumni and church relations. We moved on to campus, and so he will now he'll regale like, oh, I remember. He'll describe the house, and he'll describe things that happened around the house that I don't recall telling him, but they're accurate. What the backyard was like at that particular time.
I see.
He remembers probably from pictures, but remembers instances of sledding behind Mitzi Buddy's house in the midst of a great storm. I think that was winter of 2010, maybe 11. He recalls that. So yeah, and he could talk about how the house that we lived in, how it was organized. The
great storm in February of that year, I think. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so you graduated from Virginia Seminary in 09. Did you start working at the seminary immediately?
I did. I think I did everything you're supposed to do to be a right and good prospect for congregational ministry. My senior year, I was student body president. I had was very involved in the various programs and activities here as a student. I was responsible for getting students to be involved in the phone-a-thon. I went to study at Canterbury for a summer. Got to know people, networked well. There were no prospects from my home diocese for opportunities, and I only had one true interview with a congregation in another diocese where I discerned in the interview process and said to the individual, "You're not hiring me or anyone else because you're about to do something else." And the gentleman denied it, and then fought General Convention was in Southern California that year, and he had just got announced to another job. And he said, "How'd you know?" I said, "I could just discern that you weren't going to be hiring anybody. You weren't going to be there long."
So your home diocese you consider to be Atlanta.
That's the diocese I was ordained out of. Yeah.
Right. Where did you do your seminarian work when you were in seminary?
St. Mary's, Arlington, with Andrew Merrill.
Oh, that's right. That's Andrew Merrill. That's right. I forgot that. So you were so typical. You were a BMOC at Virginia Seminary too.
No, I was the MOC. You didn't have to put the B on it.
Okay. Fine.
No, Riley, I think it was interesting. The year that I graduated, I was student body president here. General had a black student body president. Bexley had a black student body president. I think even Seabury and Swanee may have had the year before, but yeah. So I remember when I got the announcement. This is when they had the Union of Black Episcopalians, OBES, Office of Black Episcopal Seminarians. We had our annual trip, and I got the telephone call or an email, I guess would have been, that I had been elected by the student body at Virginia Seminary to be the next student body president. And so there was Jamon Taylor at general, had already been named for general, Deborah Bennett at Bexley, myself, and Nikki Mathis, I think was just coming off her senior year at Swanee. And the four of us were together when I got that. So it would have at least been four of us were student body presidents in that year. That was 2008, 2009. Yeah. I mean, I think that was that. I have a picture, I think, of it somewhere of that day. That was a significant moment that somebody really should explore about, especially how we got to our respective locale. Anyway, yeah, that was a big deal.
Did anybody write about it at the time?
I don't recall about the four of us. I don't think there was any. I don't think anybody made it.
Nobody paused and made note.
No, but I would say, unfortunately, many times the Episcopal Church has not paused to take note of things that have taken place until way after the fact.
Well, yeah, I understand that, but what I'm thinking is that the four of you were there, and
we recognized amongst the four of us. We recognized that this was.
And why did you take a picture?
We did take it. I said I think I do have a picture of the four of us together.
What are you going to do with that picture, Charles?
I got to relocate it again and do something about it.
Can I make a recommendation?
You can make one.
That this conversation will be transcribed and made a part of the permanent archives of the African American Episcopal Historical Collection. And since you have spoken about it, that you donate that photograph to the archives of the seminary.
Should I find out, I will do such. If
Okay.
I don't have that, one of the other three might have a copy of it.
Okay. I don't have, I've taken Jamon Taylor's oral history.
Okay.
Rather impressive young man.
Very much so.
Hopefully
one day somebody will say, "Are they talking about Bishop Taylor?" Yeah.
It may have been too soon for New York.
I'm talking about when somebody listens to this in years to come, they will refer to, or they.
I see. Right. Where were you when you were working at Virginia Seminary? Where were you going to church?
Part of my accepting the position, my ordaining bishop said that I had to also have access to a pulpit and an altar.
Yeah.
So I started off as being a honorary associate at St. Luke's, DC, and then eventually at St. James Lafayette Square in Baltimore.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
St. Luke's, DC, I started off with, and then I ended up going to St. James Lafayette Square. But I was on the road a lot also for the seminary. So between
St. James and Baltimore, yeah.
Between those two places. I understood or understand my call was to serve our Black congregations. And I wanted to be steeped in those places. As you know, Riley, I have a great appreciation for the contributions of African Americans and people of African descent specifically, or more broadly in the Episcopal Church, that, to be able to I am honored to have served in those places and with those communities, and also learning their great histories. Again, I think it goes back to, we talked before about lineage and legacy, is beginning to know the stories. I remember when Harold, my great mentor and a father figure in the faith,
Harold Lewis,
his book Yet with a Steady Beat was published. I remember when he was at A15, and he was the first one to really put the posters out of all the Black bishops, and all those things were like trading cards for me. How would you learn? How did I get to learn about those individuals? Yep. How would I get to know and learn about the stories of individuals, people, and contributions to communities and neighborhoods, but then also to the church. I mean, we talked about Dr. Du Bois earlier, whose family came out of St. Luke's in New Haven, and how he was nurtured by the Episcopal Church and eventually fell away from it, which seems to be too far of a common refrain for so many people. But Alexander Crummell, who was the founder of St. Luke's, was Du Bois referred to Alexander Crummell as probably being one of the smartest men he had ever encountered, and talks about it in The Souls of Black Folk. I mean, when these things start popping up around you and you're mindful of it, you're like, I'm part of something that is powerful and unique, who has made a valuable contribution, not just to the lives and communities of people of African descent and Black people, but also to broader society as well. And nobody's paying attention to it. Goes back to the picture. Did the church pause to say, we have 4 of our seminaries, or the student body leader is a person of African descent.
What were some of the cultural and racial challenges at Virginia Seminary when you were employed here?
When I was a student or when I was employed?
Whichever you'd like to answer.
As a student, I didn't really find... Remember, I had left Atlanta. I had relationships and connections to people in Virginia, Maryland, and DC, that my time on campus was for school things, and I didn't really, I didn't always have, how would I put it? I had escapes, which nurtured me and nurtured my wife. In a way that if there were racial instances and things of that nature here on campus, I was not aware of, or it did not affect me as much. Also, I think there was a sense of awareness of pride that that nobody was going to take away from me what God has called me to do. So I couldn't get caught up in some shenanigans or even some things that some people were, or may have been troubled by. I think I know as an employee, Michael Battle was a provost my first year here. And VTS has had people of African descent in senior leadership in the past. I would like to say when I served in this place, I provided a safe space for Black students, either in my office and in our home. That there were students who knew, no matter the time nor day, knock on the Fisher's door, you can get inside, and you can retreat. I had that intimately with Tony Lewis, and even with Judy Francis Williams. But I think I know that when I had the opportunity to live here on campus, Rhonda and I were more, or differently. We made it available in a different way, because I had the experience of being a student just a year ago.
Yeah.
Of having that, and even I believe you were a student when I was working here as well. My office became somewhat of a hot hangout spot. It was sat right on the corner. Dr. Lewis would pull up his car. The people could pop their cars in, and at any given moment, especially in the afternoons as the day was coming to an end, it was a place where students, faculty, administration, graduates who probably had not come to the campus often could come and retreat to and say, let's spend some time over in Fisher's place, in his office, or just knew it was a safe space, or even to the house. I remember when I was preparing to leave here, Joseph Constant was here, Tony Lewis, myself. I'm trying to think who else was like a senior, because I think it was when Joseph Constant was leaving to go back to congregational ministry. Or maybe it was when I was leaving. Judy Francis Williams was with us. A bunch of us had gone out to eat. And somebody made a comment, nobody, when the three of you, and I think they're referring to Tony, Joseph, when the three of you walk around on campus, there's a sense of pride, presence. There's a sense of pride where you guys walk with your heads held high and your chest out to allow people to know that we're here. and that others are to be respected on this campus as well. Those were, I mean, I don't know if, and the three of us had very unique but similar stories. I mean, we were all steeped in the Episcopal Church. There was something about being a Black man who was an Episcopal priest that meant something. There was a gravitas there, and we had seen it in people generations before us and knew other folks, which I don't know if our current student body has the same experience.
Probably not, but that's a topic of a different time. How has how do I want to ask this? Your relationship with God evolved as you are now steeped in middle age?
That's the first time somebody publicly said I'm in middle age.
Well,
matured. I would say matured as poor as evolved, and I'd say matured in terms of mature relationship.
What does that mean when you say mature?
I've gotten to know God in a way that I had not known God previously, and God has revealed to me more about myself than I had known about myself. And so as time has gone on, and as I've grayed, there are I've come to know God a bit more intimately, and trusting that God will never leave me nor forsake me. And that's not just quoting, but that's true. I mean, there's a blessed assurance of sorts that these things that we talk about, pray about, preach about, read about are true, and I can hold on to that. And before it was mental gymnastics and thinking stuff, but now it's of the heart. And so that mature relationship,
you know it.
Yes, but as the knowing is more than just an intellectual knowledge. I mean, it's a intimacy of having a bond that can't be ripped apart by anything or any other person. Mm-hmm. And I've had my fair share of hurts and disappointments with an institution called the church.
You want to talk about that?
I have not been hurt by God.
Okay. Can you talk about that? Your hurts and disappointments with the institution?
Yeah, we can. I mean, I would say, for the sake of time right now, I'd say one of the things has been, I would ask the question, as a little boy, I heard if the church would embrace a cadence and a sound, we have a wonderful opportunity. I recognize that as a little boy. And why has the institution been afraid to embrace that cadence and that sound?
How old were you?
I was in high school. I was not in high school yet, so I had to be.
Yeah. Okay.
Do
you see yourself as a visionary?
That's not for me to say. I don't know.
Yet. Did you hear what I just said? Okay. Why do you think that is, Charles? The church has not embraced the cadence?
We've had I don't want to be misquoted or misquote Harold, but I think he talks about, and yet with the steady beat, that there were historically, and maybe even currently, there are people who came to the Episcopal Church to escape certain things. escape the past, escape a theology, escape an environment. And figured if they were to wrap themselves in this denomination of sorts, those things would magically disappear and they would be absolved of any strange, weird, or unfortunate hurts that they've experienced in these so-called United States regarding race. Harold, of course, says it far more eloquently and in different ways. I believe that our Anglican Episcopal theology is inclusive enough that regardless of how you come to it, you can bring your whole self to it and it can make sense. So even in worship, by using the Book of Common Prayer, that should be but a skeleton and not the flesh. And the skeleton does not tell you what it's supposed to look like. Your divine imagination should allow for you and God to be able to see beyond what's on the pages. So the smudge mark at page 355, I believe that's where Rite 2 starts, should not be the definitive word, but rather give you an outline for how you can live more fully into the Word of God in a way that's authentic to who you are. And I think that, as I heard as a young boy, that if the cadence was there, why would I say that? And why do I hold on to that? If this was said in a different type of way, other people would be attracted to. I didn't say that the words are wrong. I didn't even say that. I said if it was said a different type of way, that would be attractive. If the music, if we were willing to embrace the music of other than what we may find in the 82 hymnal, and that and other non-approved resources, that it may draw people to it because there is a familiarity, there's a pattern, there's a skeleton that people can hang their spirituality upon it and be assured that it'll be fully formed.
Like adding sinew and muscle to Ezekiel's bones.
Oh yeah, let these bones live, right? There's a rattling going on. So there is also the ability to use what people are drawn to and understanding of a faith journey, religious expression, and spirituality that the Episcopal Church has not always used. Nobody is turning on the radio to WW 1982 hymnal. I don't know even a radio station where you can say that's what's going on.
Yeah.
But if you bring in I'll tell you a story. It was either November 2005. November 2005 at Canoga, there was a conference called Transformation and Renewal. It was a wonderful thing that brought, it was not, I don't think it was sponsored by 815, the Black Desk, nor UB. I think it was made up of different Black Episcopalians from across the country who represented those different organizations, but then also their own ideas, who brought Black folks to Canoga. I don't think they've done it since 2005. And that year there was, the keynote speaker was the Reverend Dr. Granger Browning of the Ebenezer AME Church over here in Fort Washington, Maryland. Dr. Browning talked about his experience of the Episcopal Church, I think even growing up in the Episcopal Church at some time, or a family member of his were. If you hear a story here, I'm mentioning individuals who've had experiences with the Episcopal Church but have made their name in other places. Vashti McKenzie of St. James, Baltimore, Bishop Vashti McKenzie. And Granger Browning talked about how music, when he first got to Ebenezer, he would have musicians play music that he wanted to hear because he was the only one who had to come to church. he has a mega ministry. He talked about the power of spiritual gifts and the laying on of hands, and laid hands on people, and some people were slain in the spirit at this Episcopal gathering as well. There were all these other expressions. These aren't the only things, but I'm recalling instances where I heard and saw and experienced things where I saw a transformation and the coming of the Holy Spirit in ways that didn't have to be demonstrative and necessarily in speaking in tongues per se, but it was demonstrative in a way where I saw people changed and had a new enlightenment to, oh wow, there's more to God than what I've been told. And I think that we are, I wonder if we, and I say we because I'm including myself here in the Episcopal Church when I say this, I wonder if we're scared, if we really tapped into all that God had to offer, what might really happen? That not only is it touching our head, but it's touching our heart, and our spirit rejoices. And what's going to happen? I think that may scare some folks, and I think it may also have some folks, going back to what I said earlier, who are trying to get away from some things, recognize that they can bring all of that back to, they can bring all that even into this, in this place, and nothing is lost. Matter of fact, they would be enriched by it. I mean, I'll tease you, Riley. I mean, from time to time, I've been in worship with you where I've seen you tap your foot, and I see you trying to restrain tapping your foot, but you can't hold it back.
No, I can't hold it back. You know, I'm like to get up and shout any old time. Shoot. But let me just ask you this question. What about what change can say, and we're running out of time, but what change can Michael Curry bring? Has he brought, speaking in, you know, what will soon be in past tense?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it could be upon one person.
No.
But
has he? What I'm asking, I guess, is I've seen him in the pulpit, and he expands the experience of Episcopal worship in a way that most Episcopalians are not accustomed to.
He's one man, though.
And one man can't make a difference?
I know a man who did make a difference. And we tell his story 2,000 years after the fact. His name is Jesus. But I don't know if...
But there have been disciples who've done that too.
And apostles, yes. I wouldn't put this upon Michael Curry of having to be the one solely responsible for this.
That's not what I'm saying.
Then I misunderstood your statement. Your question.
No. My statement is that I'm not saying that he has a responsibility to do that, but that is what he brought to the table.
I remember hearing about Father Michael Curry.
Okay.
As a young boy when he was not only in Ohio, but more importantly, when he was in Baltimore.
Okay.
And the radical work that he was doing in ecumenical circles over there, I think with...
Good evening, or actually good afternoon. The library will be closing in 15 minutes. Please check out any library materials and pack up your belongings soon. Again, the library will be closing in 15 minutes. Thank you.
I needed to change that face I just did.
Possibly I think what he was doing in terms of gang work, I think even possibly in the work of HIV/AIDS.
Yes.
Baltimore, his work with Bethel AME Church, with Frank Reed, and possibly with John Bryant, and Pennsylvania AME Zion Church. I mean, we mentioned Bishop Vashti McKenzie, who came out of that church, grew up at St. James, Baltimore. And if I know history correctly, and somebody will maybe amend this later on, she saw a call to ministry, but this is before women were ordained in the Episcopal Church. And so she found her way to the AME Church. Because black folks were doing this stuff way before white folks decided to do it. Let's talk about that for a moment. We talk about the Philadelphia 11, but we don't take in consideration that it was a black man, Paul Washington, who opened up his church, and his senior warden carried the cross in as the first person in there by the name of Barbara Harris, that made it opportunity for the Philadelphia 11 to be ordained. We don't talk about how black folks have opened up the doors and have led the way time and time again, but we focus on who was at the end of the line and not talk about who was at the front of the line and who was willing to make the sacrifice.
Oh, but then
Why don't these things why aren't the transformation taking place in the Episcopal Church? Or why aren't we pausing to take moment of, there's 4 presidents at our seminaries at this particular time? Why aren't we, because I don't know if everybody, or at the time of this recording, I don't know if everybody wants to pay attention to the fact that there's something else going on, and if it takes hold, there's going to be a change going on. And I don't know if everybody.
And that's what I'm saying to you about Michael Curry, and that he is at some point somebody's going to recognize this is a man who was at the front of the procession, who expanded the experience for millions, hundreds of thousands of Episcopalians.
That's yet to be revealed. And I think we need to focus beyond just the Episcopalians.
Okay. Yeah. And absolutely. Including his appearance in England at the wedding of Harry and Meghan Markle. They had never heard preaching like that before in the Church of England. No?
I don't know if Queen Elizabeth II had.
She had. You see the look on her face?
I mean, I can't.
All right. Listen, we've got to come to an end here, but I need to ask you a question. Is there something that you wanted to talk about during this session that you have not had an opportunity to talk about? Because I didn't ask the right question.
Hopefully this is the first of several conversations. So
okay.
I would have to reflect back on our time together, and if there's something that I wish we had delved a little bit deeper into. I talked about going to Morehouse in the summer of 1990 and seeing that, and I talked about Dr. Butts. Dr. Butts spoke at Martin Luther King celebration in January 1993 in Trenton, New Jersey. He was a keynote speaker. And I had already got my acceptance to Morehouse. And my family went to the King celebration with somebody else. And I listened to Dr. Butts every Sunday on the radio when I used to deliver newspapers. And that's why I wanted to go. And I knew he was a Morehouse man, but if somebody turned over to my mom and dad said, and that's the reason why your son must go to Morehouse, he will be a Morehouse man like him. For me, that was a confirmation. Dr. Thurman says, or Howard Thurman says, a Morehouse places a crown above the head of his students that they may dare to grow tall enough to wear. A crown was placed above my head that day, so I can begin to grow towards it. Not that I would wear it, but I can grow tall enough to wear it. Raleigh, I seek for a time where I can make additional offerings to this institution of the Episcopal Church, prayerfully one day in a congregational setting again. We didn't talk about my congregational life, or even why I've gone back and forth to.
We need to talk about that. So let's reschedule and make that the focus.
Sure.
Okay.
Before I get too old, like some other people, and forget.
That was mean. That was at the end of this wonderful conversation. You just take a swipe at me like that. You go up, boy.
I appreciate you. This has been great. I thank you for the opportunity to share, and hopefully this will be a blessing to somebody one day.
Let me tell you, I have done many of these, but rarely has someone moved me to tears the way you did on several occasions this afternoon. Those moments of unvarnished truth that just shine through. And when I asked you a question, I won't even repeat the question now. But my answer was, yet. Okay? Love you.
Love you too, man. Appreciate you. Keep doing great work. We need it.
All right.
God bless you.